It's the year 2083. Sunflower, an AI system developed by the world government's Military Affairs and Defense Sciences Department, is running amok, locating and killing dissidents with massive airstrikes in the middle of some of the most densely populated urban areas in the world. It all started on the night of September 23rd, when an airstrike was launched on a 15-story building in the middle of Singapore. The AI system wrongly labeled an inhabitant as a high-level dissident that was actively working to overthrow the government. Since that first strike, thousands more have taken place, taking the lives of hundreds of thousands of innocent people in just 7 months. And no one knows if Sunflower even has an off switch. Now, what if I told you this system already exists? In fact, Israel has already deployed an eerily similar system, AI system, in Gaza as we speak. Welcome to the dystopian future we all hoped would never arrive.
The Israeli-Palestinian publication Plus 972 magazine and the Hebrew language news outlet Local Call report the IDF has been using artificial intelligence programs, including ones called The Gospel and another called Lavender, to identify their targets.
According to Israeli investigative journalists at Plus 972 magazine, Israel has deployed an artificial intelligence algorithm named Lavender that selects targets in Gaza for the Israeli Air Force to strike. Plus 972 has spoken to 6 sources within the IDF that have first-hand experience with Lavender. According to these sources, Lavender aggregates data from a mass surveillance system in Gaza and ranks every single citizen based on the likelihood that they are in some way affiliated to Hamas. The algorithm uses hundreds of thousands of features that influence a person's rating, such as being in a WhatsApp group with a known militant and changing addresses frequently. In every war up until the current war in Gaza, there would be a human decision maker that decided whether someone was a legitimate target or not. But after Hamas's attack in October 2023, there was considerable pressure from the Netanyahu-led war government on the IDF to ramp up the amount of strikes in Gaza. According to one source, the reason for the automation of target selection was a constant push to generate more targets for assassination. We were constantly being pressured. Bring us more targets. They really shouted at us. The outputs of the algorithm were not scrutinized any further, except for checking whether the target was male or female. Only men were allowed to join Hamas's military ranks, so a female target was assumed to be a faulty output by the algorithm. According to multiple sources, only 20 seconds would be spent on verifying the target's gender. They would do that by listening in on their phone calls. If the target sounded like a man, they would proceed with the assassination. Military officials were not obliged to examine the raw intelligence data on which the algorithm was based. They were just expected to carry out the assassination without deviating from Lavender's recommendation, treating the AI's outputs as orders from a superior officer. The result of this process is that thousands of targets were wiped out without having anything to do with Hamas. They were just innocent people going about their day. If you bought a second-hand phone that at some point belonged to a Hamas operative, you would die. If you changed addresses too soon, you would die. Are you wearing a headband that covers too much of your face? Now you look too much like a Hamas militant. You're dead. When it comes to the best location to engage the targets that were marked by Lavender, the choice was made early on. They would be bombed in their own home. Why go through the hassle of trying to find someone in a location with a lower population density, or when they were actually engaged in military operations? It's much easier to monitor their home and bomb it as soon as they entered. This was the thought behind Where's Daddy, an automated system that kept track of the movements of AI-designated targets. Where's Daddy would monitor the homes of thousands of targets at the same time, and when the system observes that a target entered their home, the Air Force was sent in to blow up the building. Often this would be at night, when the whole family is sleeping, and since Gaza is one of the most densely populated areas in the world, most homes are apartments. So when a building was bombed, it meant that multiple homes with whole families were wiped out. After deciding who to bomb, where to bomb them, and when to bomb them, it's time to choose the munition. In December 2023, CNN reported that according to US intelligence sources, almost half of the bombs that the Israeli Air Force uses were so-called dumb bombs. These dumb bombs are infamous for their lack of precision and the amount of collateral damage they caused. But using more expensive munition meant that the war would become too costly. On top of that, Israel's political leadership was afraid of a second front opening up to the north if Hezbollah decided to enter the war. This meant that the Air Force couldn't just use up all the munitions on Gaza. Israel's largest munitions supplier, the United States, is already supporting an ongoing conflict in Ukraine, and it has to keep munitions on standby in case mainland China initiated hostilities against Taiwan, or in case some other conflict erupted. All of this means that Israel can't rely on an unlimited stream of expensive precision bombs in its ongoing conflict. The result is a devastating bombing campaign that is increasingly resembling the bombing of German cities in World War II. When it comes to the authorization to kill civilians, Israel's policy was unlike any other war before it. General Peter Gersten, deputy commander for operations and intelligence during the fight against ISIS in Iraq and Syria, told a US defense magazine in 2021 that a strike that generated collateral damage of 15 or more civilians was out of the ordinary. In order to carry out such a strike, special permission was needed from US Central Command, which was headed by Lloyd Austin at the time, the current defense secretary. During the operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the US president allowed a non-combatant value of 30. And keep in mind, bin Laden was the most wanted man on the planet for more than a decade. In Gaza today, the IDF allows civilian casualties of at least 20 in any random strike. If a high-value target was to be engaged, the NCV was in the hundreds.
موجود في العمارة كل يوم بيبقوا هنا يمكن فوق ال 20 طفل.
In order to assassinate Ayman Novel, the commander of Hamas's Central Gaza Brigade, a source said the army authorized the killing of approximately 300 civilians, destroying multiple buildings in airstrikes on El Bureish refugee camp on October 17th, based on an imprecise pinpointing of Novel. Between 16 and 18 houses were wiped out in the attack. At some point you lose sight of proportionality, when hundreds of defenseless and innocent people are allowed to die with every strike. It becomes hard to argue that one is not committing war crimes. So yeah, that was it for today's video, guys. This was an exceptionally hard video to make for me. The details of what's going on in Gaza as we speak are just horrific. I can't understand how there's still countries supporting Israel and supplying them with all the weapons they need to commit the atrocities they're committing. It baffles me. I have no idea what's going on. And the scary thing is I did not expect a system like Lavender to be deployed already. I'm not surprised that we're capable of making a system like Lavender, but I'm more surprised about the fact that it's already deployed, being used against defenseless civilians. Yeah, that's insane to me. We're living in the future. I'm going to end this video by showing a clip of John Maersheimer, who talks about the war in Gaza right now, what Israel is doing exactly, why it's doing what it's doing. You should see the whole clip actually. It's 1.5 hours long. I'll share a link in the description down below. But it goes hand in hand with the topic we just discussed, not necessarily about AI, but more just the broader geopolitical like movements, earthquakes that are going on in the Middle East right now, and also more about Iran and China. But before I share this clip, I would love for you to like this video. It nudges the YouTube algorithm in the right direction. It gets more people to see this video. Subscribe if you want to see more of my content. I upload videos like these every single week. So without further ado, here's John Maersheimer, professor of political sciences at Chicago University, one of the most cited authors in political sciences, in the field of political sciences ever. This is just, he's one of the top dogs in his field. Definitely worth a listen. And if you enjoyed the clip, go see the whole video, link in the description down below. See you in the next video.
And Israeli military commanders, IDF military commanders, are constantly complaining these days that Netanyahu doesn't give them any sense of what the final political settlement's going to look like, so they can deal with Hamas and deal with the Palestinians with some thought in mind about what the end game is here. The reason there's no end game, the reason they're not talking about how they're going to administer a Palestinian-dominated Gaza is because they want the Palestinians out. They want to ethnically cleanse Gaza. And then that brings us to the question, how do you do this? Right? How do you get the Palestinians out? Well, first of all, they definitely went after Hamas to start with. That was the purely military side of the story. They went after Hamas. But to make ethnic cleansing work, you have to, number one, kill significant numbers of people, of Palestinians, who are basically innocent Palestinians, not Hamas. You have to kill large numbers of them, and you have to give them a powerful incentive by killing them to drive them out. Number two, you have to make the place unlivable, and that's what they're doing. I mean, they're not just killing people, they're making Gaza unlivable. I could go through this in detail in the Q&A if people want to hear the story. But it is, as many people say, especially the UN people who are there, the place is unlivable. And the reason it's unlivable is because they're trying to cleanse Gaza.